a sign that you can see it, and we go. Excellent. I guess you can see it, right?
We can see you, yeah.
Perfect. So thank you very much for this opportunity to share with you more information on the CBTA Center. Good morning for the participant in Asia. Good afternoon, actually, and good morning for those that are attending from other regions. My name is Yaniv Sohani, and I'm responsible for certification with IATA. And among them, we also have a certification in the area of dangerous good trainings that we are going to share with you more information today. Earlier today, I think Dave gave you a hint about the upcoming changes in the training provisions. And just now, Candy elaborate a little bit in much more details and technical details on what this will involve in practical requirements from the employers in developing their training programs in order to produce a competent workforce. So here the focus is more to share with you on how we are planning to support the industry to develop capacity and resources in order for them to be able to meet the CBTA guidelines moving forward. So again, just to start with the background for those of you that are attending just my session and didn't get a chance to attend the background information that provided earlier, the CBTA was decided by the DGB 27 back in September 2029, and as a result, the ICAO technical instructions, the whole Chapter 4 of Part 1 regarding dangerous good trainings has been changed. As a consequence, we updated the relevant section 1.5 in the dangerous good regulation to also include a mandatory approach for dangerous good trainings according to the CBTA by January 1st, 2023. Very important to say that the existing training provisions may continue to be used until the end of 2022 according to attachment 4 of the dangerous good technical instructions, or even according to table 15A that we publish in the 61st editions of the dangerous good. The basic requirement for staff, on whether these are staff from shippers, freight forwarders, or any other personnel that involve in processing, shipping, or handling or transporting dangerous good, remain unchanged. Those people will require to complete trainings relevant to their functions as it is today. So what does it mean in terms of timeline? We are currently in the interim period, and the interim period intends to allow stakeholders, on whether these are civil aviation authorities or airlines, handling agents, and training providers, to progressively migrate their respective involvement in the dangerous good trainings in order to meet the CBTA requirements. CBTA, it is not something that is new in our industry. This is something that is happening for pilot training, for maintenance training for almost 20 years. It is just new for dangerous good. But the experience shows that it requires some time to move from what we call traditional trainings or the existing training structure into competency-based training and assessment. And a transition period of 2 years gives the sufficient time for organization in order to do so. So we encourage any of you that have not yet started working on transitioning their training program into CBTA approach to do so and maximize this transition period to make this change. When it's come to the responsibility, it's very important to say that the employers remain the ultimate responsible for the establishment of the dangerous good training program. However, we foresee that many employers, like it is today, will rely on the third-party providers to provide them with different aspects of the CBTA requirements. And that means that mainly these third-party providers will be responsible not anymore just in providing the training it is today, they will get involved also in supporting those organizations in the different phases of of the development and the management of the training program. So we foresee that, yes, the employers will remain automatically responsible for the overall training program for its personnel. However, the training providers will play a very important role and will continue to play a very important role, not only in providing training courses, but in supporting those organizations in developing the right materials and right tools in order for them to meet the requirements according to the CBTA. So what we foresee that Candy elaborate a little bit more on the different phases of the ADI concept, which are the analyze, design, development, implementation, and evaluates, and we put a standards or a guidance in place in Appendix H on how to do so, with the intention to support organizations that will develop training programs that will lead to competency workforce. So it's put a responsibility on the employers, but it's still important to maintain a network of training organizations, because they are going to play, in addition to the employers, a very important role in supporting the industry in meeting these requirements. When we look into it from a learner standpoint, we look on what are the requirements today for traditional trainings compared to competency-based trainings. So as you know, today the training is very much centers around the teacher. It is based on a specific job title. It's centered about specific subject contents. Today, Table 15A provides us with a table of contents in a brief level on what each category or each segments need to be trained. It includes a very wide of knowledge that everyone has to follow, regardless to his specific function. So many trainees find themselves following in trainings and getting sometimes too much knowledge and sometimes skills on something that they're not going to use in the day-to-day. It is time-based. You have to follow a specific training in a specific time frame, and this is why is centered around the teacher. Competency-based training and assessment will put the learner in the center. The focus will be on producing a competence workforce. This is why the training is based on a specific job functions and a specific task to achieve. It is aiming to reach specific performance and specific competency, and as a result, the trainings and the assessment needs to be tailored in terms of content and assessment in order to support the employees to be able to have the right skills, the right knowledge, and retains these skills and knowledge and remain competent at all time to perform his job. Assessment are there in the competency-based training and assessment, because assessment is going to be a very important part in making sure that employees moving forwards continues to assess the competency of their workforce so that they remain competent to do their job. So this is the change from the teacher standpoints into the learner standpoints, and this is the main change that we see from moving from traditional training to competency-based training when it's come to the learner. However, it's put more responsibility and require more capacity and resources from the organization in order for them to do so. So when we look on the current requirement for traditional trainings, it very much depends on delivery of standardized courses. Today, training providers, they require to provide standardized trainings. Everyone has to follow the same trainings. Yes, there are some customization, but in general, if someone has to follow a category 6, there is a predefined syllabus that everyone has to follow. Everyone has to follow specific assessment at the end of the course with the specific allocations of questions, and at the end, be able to achieve this certification by completing this exam. So we see that we are moving from a delivery of standardized training toward a CBTA training that requires from organization to identify the key competency of those organizations, the level of proficiency that they are going to achieve. Can dimension the level of competency on whether these are introductory level, intermediate level, or basic level. And then at the end, to determine the most effective way to train them on whether it will be, let's say, theoretical training in classroom environment, or practical training in classroom environment, or on-the-job trainings, or different type of delivery methods, and whether it will be instructor-led, e-learning trainings, and others means. And at the end, also to define the most reliable assessment tool to evaluate the achievements of those workforce. So much more responsibility on the employers on how they are going to identify the competency and determine the most effective way to train their staff. In doing so today, those organizations require in many cases to go through an evaluation by some civil aviation authority as part of the approval of their dangerous goods training program. Today, this review is done mainly with the intention to focus on the course contents. So today in approving dangerous goods training courses, the focus is mainly on the contents, on the personnel that are delivering these trainings. Moving forward, those organizations will require to have much more than course contents. We are moving from course contents into a training programs, and training program include much more components in which course content is just one component of it. So we are moving into evaluation of the organization training programs, their training manuals, their procedures and processes on how they are going to analyze trainings, on whether they will require to conduct a training need analysis at organization level, function level, or individual level, and same apply for the design and developments on whether they are going to design e-learning type of courses, which are going to be a very legitimate tool under CBTA approach, and many civil aviation authority are starting to accept e-learning trainings for dangerous goods trainings. Same apply for the assessment, and the most important thing is how those organizations are going to evaluate the effectiveness of the trainings. I think CBTA is very much flexible. It put the employer in the driving seat to define and to design the training to achieve his business objective and to achieve the employee's task to deliver. However, it's very important that at the same time that the employers will have a quality system in place to evaluate the effectiveness of the trainings and the performance of his employees. So moving forward, the scope of those of the review of the training course will move into review of the entire training programs and his components. We see that today dangerous goods training is mainly delivered by training schools, traditional training schools that used to provide this training in classroom environment. We are moving into not necessarily training schools. We are moving from training schools to training providers. There are out there many organizations that don't consider themselves training schools because they are providing only e-learning solutions, only e-learning solution for dangerous goods trainings, and they don't consider themselves as a training school. So we are moving from a traditional provision of trainings in classroom environment into more organization that will step into this business, which is very good because we want to have more organization to provide effective training so that we can provide these trainings everywhere in the world. But it will require a different set of intention for this type of organization as part of the approval process. So we in IATA, we recognize the challenge faced by many organizations, and when I say many organizations, many civil aviation authority either are facing some challenges in moving into that direction on how they are moving forward to review and approve organization for dangerous goods trainings. And in general, they are having some challenges on how to move from what we call traditional educational system into competency-based training while keeping it up with the industry regulation. As you know, we in IATA, we have a network of accredited training schools, network of about 200 schools, which is a very, very important networks in making sure that we have our ambassador out there that can provide an approved or an accredited dangerous goods trainings in the industry. So we must ensure that this network continue to be in compliance with the training's requirements, so that we will continue to maintain a reliable and trust network of training organizations that can provide the industry with trainings that meet and continue to meet the industry standards. And I'm giving this background information because this is what lead us into the conclusion that we need to develop a new certification program to support the industry overcome this challenge and prepare themselves to meet the requirements. And this is why we introduced a couple of months ago the CBTA Center, which is a global accreditation body on certifying organization for compliance with dangerous good provisions for dangerous good under CBTA approach. So the program intends to certify not only training schools that intend to offer trainings to the market, but also organizations like airlines and handling agents that are willing to go through a certification process with the intention to benchmark their existing training program and get the opportunity to improve it and achieve certification at the end in compliance with the required regulation. So the main objective of the program is first and foremost is to continue to maintain and monitor a global recognized accreditation program for competency-based dangerous good trainings around the world in a cost-effective manner. So this is one of our main goals currently under the ATS program, Accredited Training Schools, and it remains our main goal in making sure that we are maintaining a reliable network of training organizations that provide trainings according to the standards. And then, of course, to support the industry to develop the capacity and resources. Many of them require support in doing so. We developed the guidance documents that can dimension Appendix H. It completely changed and is going to be completely a new document in 2022 edition with much more comprehensive information. Still, many organizations require to get much more support beside this guidance document. So this is where we identify the need to support the industry with other solutions and services in addition to the different guidance documents and tools that we are having currently in place. And at the end, to raise the bar in the industry, making sure that we continue to have a network of organizations that provide high quality of trainings and effective trainings, and that we give the right visibility for those organizations that are meeting the standards. So how we are going to do it? We identified 3 types of certification. In brief, the first certification focused at cooperates organization, CBTA cooperates, those organizations that intend as an employers that they have to implement CBTA within their organization, and whether these are airlines or cargo terminal operators, ground handling agents, freight forwarders, and shippers. And they want to make sure that the trainings that they are providing to their employees is in compliance with the CBTA approach. So this certification focuses on the employers that intend to implement CBTA within their organization and wants to be recognized for compliance with the training provisions and guidelines. The other 2 types of certification focus on organizations that want to commercialize their trainings activity and want to offer this training to the public with the intention to generate income out of it. The CBTA provider will eventually replace the ATS. It will focus on organizations like schools or training institutions that want to provide competency-based training and assessment for a specific, well-defined job functions. What we see that today we have a network of 200 schools, and some of them are focusing on specific functions. For example, major part of our networks, we have a network of schools that are specialists in providing trainings for shippers and packers for specific category, for specific classes, or for specific UNs. So those organizations will be accredited to provide dangerous good trainings for specific, well-defined job functions based on their customer needs and also based on their capability. The third type of certification is CBTA Excellence. What we identify that we are moving from provisions of training courses into a need to support the industry, not only with providing them the training, but supporting the industry with the entire development of the CBTA. And this is where it's created the need to also have a network organization that are not only professional in providing dangerous good training courses, but are also professionals in providing developments and implementation solutions and services for those organizations that will be in a need not only to get a training, but also to get an external companies to help them in how to conduct the training need analysis and defines the training programs and other elements that related to the trainings program. The CBTA Excellence will be able, of course, to provide dangerous good trainings as the providers, but also will be positioned as an organization that has the right competency in place to provide dangerous good trainings and solutions for the developments and implementation of CBTA. So in terms of assessment scope and criteria, what is very important to say that at the end of the day, the CBTA Center is based on IATA Dangerous Good Manual, is based on our guidelines in Appendix H. So what we did in practice, we looked into the dangerous good training provisions. We looked into the guidance document in Appendix H, and we transformed all these guidance document into a more practical documents that we can use to provide to organization to benchmark their existing training capability, and by doing so to identify the gaps, but also to identify opportunities for improvements based on the guidance document. We also looked into the requirements in the ICAO technical instructions and the CBTA guidance of ICAO, just in order for us to make sure that we are covering both. I must say that, as you all know, that the Dangerous Good Manual is a very comprehensive manual that go much more beyond what is in the ICAO technical instructions. It is the case with Appendix H, but just in order for us to make sure that we have the complete coverage of the two, we looked into the two documents in making sure that we are covering the entire contents when assessing those organizations. We identify different criteria in which we are going to focus through this assessment with those organizations that you can see. It's go from organization level up to the entire training program components, the quality systems, and the training's contents and personnel. So how is going to be done in reality? As I said, we developed an assessment checklist. The checklist contains about 150 questions. The scope of the checklist is different on whether it is an employer that wants to be assessed, a training provider, or a CBTA Excellence. As I said, the checklist is based on the current Dangerous Good Manual, so it's currently based on the 62 edition. We are making some revisions to our document as we talk, so that we make sure that as of 1st of January, our materials will completely reflect always the current edition of the Dangerous Good regulation. In terms of process, companies that will be willing to assess, we will apply a multi-step assessment process that will include 3 main phases. The first phase is the self-assessment. This is where we will provide a company with the assessment checklist in order for them to conduct their own self-assessment, answer the question in the checklist, attach evidence document and reference documents in order for us to review it. And this is where we will start the assessment from our side. The assessment for our side will include two steps. The first step will be a remote review of the documents that you will provide us as part of your self-assessment. And the second step will be an actual assessment where there will be an interactive discussion between the assessor from IATA side and your company, in order for us to go through your different documentation and processes with the intention not only to identify findings, but to help you identify the opportunity for improvements in order not only to meet the requirements of the CBTA, but go much more beyond it. At the end of the assessment, we will produce reports with the findings and opportunities for improvements for those organizations to work on them. Some of them you will have to implement, some of them you will have to address, and this is where it's very important to use these activities during the transition period, because what is currently a guidelines may become a mandatory after CBTA will come into effect by next year, by 2023. So at the end of the assessment, we will produce report with the findings, and this is where you will have to work on addressing those findings and opportunities for improvements. And once it will be done, we will schedule the final phase, which is the validation, where we will verify the implementation of those findings. That will lead into a certification for the organization for a period of 2 years to confirm that you are in compliance with the relevant requirements. It's very important that this is an accreditation process. You will not only be the only companies in the driving seat. IATA assessor will work in close cooperation with the organization during all this accreditation process and journey in supporting you during that process to meet the requirements. So once you achieve the certification, this is where it's all starts, because achieving the certification is one thing, but we are leveraging on learning quality for performance improvements. So it's very important that those organizations will not only achieve the certification, but also will remain competent at all time to provide these trainings. That means that as part of the requirements, I would say, but also benefits of this program, we will make sure that we are providing annual refresher trainings for the instructors of those companies that will achieve this certification, with the intention that we are making sure that those instructors are always having the right knowledge and skills to conduct the trainings. It will involve different spot checks in making sure that those organizations continue to improve and to remain in compliance with the regulations. That it will require from those organizations